Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabley, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. Welcome back to Matter of Facts podcast. Phil and Andrew are back behind the mic, and for the patrons and maybe a couple of the PBN hosts, if they join us, you are looking at our ugly faces, which is your fault because you voluntarily submitted to this, not mine.
I got 4Ks too. I got my Canon working.
What?
They're seeing my ugly face in 4K.
Actually, the our StreamYard caps out at 720, but I appreciate the effort.
Okay, well, it's still HD, and it's still good.
Because if you got to look at ugly, it might as well be pretty ugly.
Right.
That was a double dig, because pretty ugly wasn't, pretty ugly and pretty ugly.
Everybody knows Gillian is the face of the show.
Gillian is the looker of the show.
Yes.
But I've got my ale horn loaded up with Guinness. It's going to be that kind of a day. I already warned Andrew, there is so much stuff that's gone on like the last week since he and I got together to talk. Ooh, smoked maple Knob Creek.
Oh, that's my favorite.
That sounds like a bad idea. I got to try.
Yeah.
But there's been so much going on, man. I don't even think we're going to get through all these topics. So, like, I guess real quick, have you done anything in prepping other than work your tail off for prepper money?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, honestly, my wife and I have been like laser focused on. We've been laser focused on trying to get like her and my daughter ready for this. Today was the first day of school, my daughter's new school. Proud Texans in the chat. Now we can start. Okay, now we can stop rambling. So Let's start with the announcement. I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but tomorrow is our 6-year anniversary.
Holy crap.
6 years of Matter of Facts podcast. I don't remember exactly what month you came into this, but it was a few months after I'd started. It wasn't that far in. But yeah, August the 12th, 2016 was the day that I sat and watched the news and watched a bunch of fools stuck in their car on the interstate and thought to myself, wow, there's a bunch of people not prepared for life to kick them in the butt. Maybe I should start podcasting.
Someone should tell them stuff.
Someone should tell them stuff. I mean, we've had a couple of good successes over the years. A couple people woke up, and a bunch of people we've kind of built the community and the tribe and all shared information. But it really comes down to like, it's not like I had a unique idea. I was hardly the first person to get into podcasting in the prepper space. I mean, I just feel like everybody has their own idea and their own perspective, and mine's largely built around like my life experiences and also the fact that like I live in the suburbs. And I found at the time I started doing this, a lot of the prepping shows were like hyper focused on homesteading and sustainability, and I love all that. But for a lot of us that work in the cities, a lot of us that, depending on our career path, living out in the middle of nowhere is just difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. Actually, with Elon Musk and Starlink, that whole work tech job and live in the middle of nowhere is becoming a lot more of a reality, but it sure wasn't when I first started doing this. And you've kind of been on both sides of that, because like your internet troubles living where you used to live are notorious among our listeners.
Oh, the internet I have now is it's crazy. But the thing is though, is I'm going to try to get I need to get Trek on, and I'm hoping that maybe we can do a live show with Trek, because now he has Starlink, and I guess his internet, like he was saying, it's actually not too bad now. Let's just really quick. I'm gonna do a internet speed test, and this is streaming with the camera and all that stuff. But it's hitting 877 meg down and 40 up, so I'm happy.
I'm impressed.
Compared to the, I think I was every once in a while maybe 5 megs down, if that, and 0.2 up maybe or something. Like, it's crazy. I hate living right in town where I'm at, some of the noise and stuff like that. I mean, I'm getting used to it, but I mean, I used to live in the city when I was in college, so this isn't as bad. But I still miss the country. I still miss being able to walk out the back door and shoot anytime I want. But trade-offs. I'm happy with the internet.
Yeah, you got to take the good with the bad. But let's get to the first topic. This is not in chronological order. It's kind of in the order that I thought, kind of one thing would segue nicely into the other. So let's start with the elephant in the room that decided that kicking in a former president's front door with a sealed warrant in a highly politically charged environment was a
Well,
great idea.
communist China, anybody, or let alone just any dictatorship, basically that you've seen in the last 100 years, where one side goes after the one side that has the power now goes after the other side that is trying to gain power back of some kind. They politically shame their people. They like everything. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I might have to switch over to my laptop camera. My camera battery's blinking at me. Hate, it's throwing some hate. But
For real.
I know. But anyway, no, it's quite interesting seeing everything that's going on and seeing. I mean, a former sitting president. I mean, we've never really seen this. I mean, you've seen like Watergate and stuff like that, but this compares to really nothing compared to Watergate. I mean, that was just DNC, them tapping DNC crap, and this is like what is it, payback now for Watergate or something. But it's just crazy. It's crazy to see this happening. It's crazy to see, and the idea that the government is being weaponized against a former president and a just the people. And say what you love, and if you don't like Trump, you don't like him. I'm certainly not the biggest fan of him. There were some policies that he pushed that, like, I mean, my 401k was amazing under him, under that administration. Now I'm actually 20% down, I think. Not, and that's not cheap.
Oh.
Yeah, and so, I mean, and that's not compared to other people that are getting hurt even worse. But and yeah, Trump, he did some terrible things, such as take the guns first and then due process later, and
Yeah.
then the bump stock ban. That basically, I give him credit to. He's the one that basically opened up the door for the ATF to say, "Hey, we're going to make these laws, and we're going to make these rules because they can't make laws." And so he gave them the open door to and reinterpret certain things on firearms as they see fit. And now we're in that fight now with the what is it, the frame and receiver rule that they're coming out with and changing the pistol brace that we're the pistol brace issue, and yeah, all that crap that the ATF now is that we're fighting about. It's to me, it's he opened the door for that. But the America First was his message, and I really truly believe that under his administration, we did see a lot of America First policies coming back. For the first time, we also, we start seeing like manufacturing start coming back, and now, like it's completely the opposite. I mean, gas is crazy. What's crazy is you're seeing. It's really funny. I like seeing the press secretary getting hammered every single day, and when she's sitting there and she's trying to spend $4 a gallon, where it was almost $5. And she's trying to spend $4 a gallon as a good thing, and it's crazy. Come to find out, like, I mean, 2 years ago we were at $1 and some change. I mean, it would cost me $30 to fill my tank up, and now it's 60, 70, if not more. And that's, I mean, I have a Jeep.
The day Joe Biden sat his butt in the Oval Office for the first time, gas was $1.86 a gallon right around the corner from my house. Yesterday, when I filled up, it was $4. I'm drawing a blank. What was it? $4.17, I think. So, I mean, yes, it's come down from the heights it was at, but that's like saying, hey, good news. You stepped on a landmine, but we only have to amputate you below the knee, not above. But Nick had a comment that I put up on the screen just a second ago going to cause a tit for tat till someone does something incredibly stupid. Oh, how little you know your crystal ball is working. This, by the way, happened. I became aware of this like 3 hours ago. Andrew didn't, I don't think, even heard about this until I told him, hey, by the way, we're going to talk about this.
No, I've been driving.
So the FBI is reporting that someone attempted to break into a Cincinnati field office. A man with an AR style rifle that he didn't use and a nail gun. And apparently, he discharged the nail gun several times in the lobby, shouting and hollering, and then ran out the front door, and a chase ensued, and the suspect is still at large. Now, this is one of those moments in time where, like, it'd be really easy to write this off as crazy people do crazy things, if not for the fact that the FBI has not been doing themselves any favors in the PR contest lately. So, whether or not I believe the two incidents are connected, you better believe the media and the DNC are going to connect them one way or the other. And the only thing, like my whole concern with the Mar-a-Lago raid is if the warrant and the raid is legitimate, if it's all legitimate, if there's genuine reasons to do it, if Trump has genuinely broken the law, fine. But the fact that the warrant is sealed is a little sus. And that lack of transparency gives way to people jumping to conclusions, doing really stupid things, assuming this is related, which, again, I have no idea. This literally just happened. But it's one of those situations where it's like, I don't like a lack of transparency. I don't like the government keeping secrets from the people who are supposed to be the ones in the seat of power in this country. And when the government says, for your own good, we're going to keep this secret from you, or we're going to pull a CDC FDA move and take 75 years to release information for a FOIA request, I'm sorry, but like my heckles kind of raise up a little bit. My point of view is like, you are my employee. If I employ somebody to do something and they tell me, well, for your own good, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing, I fire that SOB and I go find somebody that's going to answer my questions when I ask them, because I am the boss, you're the employee. Unfortunately, we now live in a country where our elected officials believe that they are ordained by God or some higher power, and we poor stupid plebes cannot be trusted to know what they are doing on our behalf. And that equal parts annoys and frightens me.
Sorry, you got me right when I took a piece of ice.
I'm good for that.
You're like that waitress that comes by right when you take a bite. How's everything taste? It's like, God, it's so good. Yeah, no, I agree. The idea, just the raid itself, and just how secretive they're being. It's just like so much secret squirrel crap that it's not even funny. And the fact that I'm kind of curious to see more into it, but I have been seeing headlines that the judge and everything that I mean, first of all, I heard that the AG Garland was basically one of them that spearheaded it, and then one of the judges that signed off on it apparently is, I heard snippets that he's associated with Obama and stuff like that, and he's very just pretty much like a left wing puppet, if they will, I guess. But yeah, it's so I don't know. We'll see if anything more of that comes out. But I don't know. It's one of those things where they've been trying to nail Trump for, I mean, 2 years with the January 6th crap that nobody really cares about at all. I mean, we had cities burn across the United States under Black Lives Matter. And like we had sitting politicians calling for protests in the streets and people to rise up and not sit down and not take it, and to do things like burn the cities down. And you don't see a single thing coming out of that. But yet somebody, like, they call it the insurrection, and people, they walk in, they didn't like even break in, they just kind of walked in. They had video of the cops opening the doors for them, the Capitol Police opening doors. And I mean, one person died, and that was because she was shot by a Capitol Police, I believe it was, and nothing ever happened with that. And so it's like, what the heck's going on? So, and then they've actually, I mean, they've debunked the police, the other Capitol Police that have died. They say they count them in the statistics. They say that they died because one got hit in the head with a extinguisher and a bunch of other stuff. And I've actually been seeing reports that has been debunked. But you know, it's just crazy, and it just shows you how far the other side is willing to go to try to win. I mean, they're, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Trump, but if they're going after him this hard because he's talking about running again, what are they afraid of?
Well, and like I pointed out in a very sanctimonious meme we dropped on IG, I think the day or the day after the Mar-a-Lago raid, you know, I don't have the longest memory, but it wasn't that long ago that Trump came out and said that if he got back into the White House, he was firing like 80,000 feds. He was talking about chopping the head off of every single federal agency government wide and replacing them with people who were going to do what he asked them to do and not serve their own special deep state bureaucratic interest. And not long after that, this happens. Now, I'm not saying the FBI, I'm not saying he threatened the deep state and the deep state threatened back. I'm just saying the timing is a little sus.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just weird that it's, you know, what, less than 100 days to the next election, to the midterms, which I've heard multiple Republican congressmen say, and congresswomen basically say that if the House gets taken and the Senate, basically if the House and Senate get retaken, I mean, they're going to basically try to impeach like the whole administration. Like they're going after everybody.
I mean, honestly, I think there's a good argument to be made for it.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. But let's keep this train moving, because this might be the one where I finish off this beer and start screaming. FBI calls everyone an extremist. Now, this is not really news. This lit up the Second Amendment community not that long ago. It just took us a minute to, get back together so we could talk about it. But according to the FBI, they are now on the lookout for militia violent extremism. And they have compiled a nifty little list of symbols and different catchphrases that, they should be on the lookout for. Really insidious stuff like the Betsy Ross flag and the Gadsden flag and Revolutionary War imagery. Punisher skulls, which I think are freaking stupid. And I'm not saying you're stupid if you still have Punisher skulls on your stuff, but please, for God's sakes, take it off. I'm judging you just a little bit. References to Molon Labe, Black Flag, any references to Second Amendment. So, the way I read this, and I could be wrong, it kind of seems like all of this heat is coming in one direction. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's just me. Let's say for a second that's my own internal bias, because most of that list applies to me. It's like the Phil Rabelais bingo card, and I filled most of it up on the first shot of this. But I don't see any references to BLM. I don't see references to Antifa. I don't see references to like socialism, communism, or Marxism, all of which are antithetical to our society, our culture, our political system. No, I see a lot of references to things that are considered to be quote unquote on the right or conservatives. And that's not alarming. It's not even like shocking. It's just kind of aggravating. Because, you would think after the summer of love we all saw that the FBI would have more important things to focus on, like people that are actually burning down cities all across the country. But no, we got to look out for those 2A supporters and people that, rock Gadsden flags. Those are the ones we really need to be concerned about. Why? Because they're anti-authoritarian. And I think that's closer to hitting the nail on the head. I don't think this has anything to do with violence or extremism. I think this has everything to do with we don't like anti-authoritarians. We don't like people who buck the system. We don't like people who refuse vaccines. We don't like people who push back against our agenda. So we need to put them on lists and keep an eye on them. And if you see that any differently than me, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Yeah. What's really funny, it's just interesting. I mean, the whole thing with the extremists and all that stuff. It's just, I mean, it covers basically, I mean, pretty much everybody that even thinks that anybody who thinks of themselves as a quote unquote patriot kind of thing, or waves the American flag, or they look back at the founding fathers and they compare now versus then, and like they basically made this so broad that anybody is an extremist. I mean, when I say anybody but BLM, Antifa, the radical left, like that is you're you're extreme as long as you're not that. But I mean, what's interesting is I don't know if you know who Mike Glover is, but he recently just had a post on YouTube because like he has multiple companies. Some might know him under the Fieldcraft Survival company that he started, but he has another company called American Contingency, and his whole thing because he is into preparedness. That's a lot of like what he's into and what he teaches. But basically, so American Contingency, his company, the mission statement right on their front page. It's our mission is to inform, equip, train, and connect Americans to be self-reliant, resilient, and prepared for any contingency. Like this is actually, it's almost kind of like it reminds me of a little bit of PrepperNet, um, where it connects people together and the preparedness mindset in the community, and just gets people going. That the American Contingency, that company is labeled extremist company because of what they believe in and what and some of the and stuff that they state and stuff. Like the FBI is it's labeled a extremist company, and Mike Glover in return is basically uh, an extremist because of that.
Yeah, I watched the episode where Mike Glover talked about this, and he mentioned that his own mother called him and asked if she was considered an extremist because she was affiliated with his company. And like, I think that's part of the thing that really frustrates me because like, are there extremists out there? Duh. No joke. I'm
Mm.
surprised. I'm shocked. But I really feel like what the FBI is doing is that they're casting this net so broadly that they're capturing pretty run of the mill people. I mean, my father, who is the furthest thing from me politically, socially, I mean, he's a conservative, but he's not like a send the government back to 1778, downsize it by 90%. He's not that extreme of a conservative, but he's conservative. And he meets some of these criteria. He's a rabid 2A supporter. I mean, he's literally involved in state level Second Amendment groups. He's gone to the Capitol to protest before. He was a big pusher for constitutional carry here in the state before it got knocked down. And I think that's the part that frustrates me is like, you cast this net so wide. It includes basically everybody. And that becomes problematic for me because first of all, from a law enforcement standpoint, you cast the net that broadly, everybody's included, and it's kind of useless at that point. But the other problem is, again, I don't see BLM or Antifa on this list. I don't see Marxist, communist, socialists on this list. So I guess what this really is just, again, it's a nothing burger to some people, and to other people, it is further indication that the FBI has been weaponized against the people. And you add that, the Mar-a-Lago raid together, and for some of us who've been in this mindset for a very long time, talk about Ruby Ridge and about Waco and a variety of other subjects, we see the dots connecting. And this doesn't help. This just makes it worse. So, let's get one more of these in here. Because you brought this one up to me. Or actually, I can't remember if it was you or somebody else. Man arrested for FRTs and NFA items. And I
Yeah,
actually have that
this guy
kind of
rude.
queued up. So, Holyoke man arrested for unlawful possession of machine guns, possessing unregistered firearms, and making false statements. And the reason I had this pulled up was I wanted to zero in on this. One PTR Industries Incorporated model PTR 9x19 firearm bearing serial number yada 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 with one magazine and an altered HK MP5 type machine gun trigger housing installed. Switch type, a couple of Glock switches. I'm gonna skip over that and that. Another PTR with a bunch of Amazon stuff on it. Tech 9 with a secondary forward grip, so that's an AOW. And 2 black firearm silencers with no markings. This was the part that Andrew and I wanted to kind of zero in on, but I do think before we start talking about this, it bears pointing out this guy is going to federal prison for multiple NFA violations. Like, before we talk about the FRT triggers, let's just all take a moment and marvel at the fact that he didn't just get caught with a bump stock. He's got legit full auto happy switch stuff. And I mean, I hope he's got a really good lawyer and a trust fund because he's going to need it. But Andrew and I wanted to talk about these FRT triggers, these force reset triggers, that the ATF is taking the position that these are, because they say so, machine guns. Not even machine gun parts. Like, according to the ATF, this little trigger pack is itself a machine gun all by itself. And we believe this is the first time somebody's actually been prosecuted for that. I can't remember a person being prosecuted for FRTs. I know that Rare Breed had a cease and desist order that I'm pretty sure a judge actually gave an injunction against the ATF, preventing them from taking any further action because their regulation hasn't gone into effect yet. But here we have somebody's literally being charged for possession of these as machine guns.
Well, I think the issue. I think this guy, if it was just the FRTs, I think he could probably make a case to get away with it, kind of thing. And I don't know, but the fact that he had multiple NFA items unregistered, which this just shows you right now that the NFA itself is unconstitutional and it makes people felons. Because honestly, if I want to make something in my garage, I should be able to. I don't care, as long as I'm not harming anybody else. I should be able to make whatever I want. I should be able to make bombs. I should be able to make missiles, like freaking full auto guns, silencers, suppressors, whatever. I should be able to make anything I want. I should be
Kind
able
of
to
sounds like an extremist to me.
Yeah, me too. No, I mean, I should be able to build a full-on car in my garage, which you can, but afterwards you have to register it. You have to do all kinds of stupid crap with it. And that's the thing, is like, you have to, if you build a suppressor, and even now they're making it hard to register it, because they're going after kits. They're going after the 80% kits, especially with the suppressors. So if you go on, this is the exact same thing that this is what Trek basically had issues with. Is Trek built his own stuff, and I mean, I know he was on the show talking about it. Him and I talked about it too, and basically it was the ATF was like, yeah, so where did you get your stuff at? What? And they wanted a whole list of everything. And Trek goes, you approved the exact same kind of suppressor. You approved it. This one you're questioning me on. So do you want me to hold your hand and take you through the aisle at like Home Depot and basically show you what parts I'm buying? Because that's ridiculous. It's dumb. Like, you can't, it's there. And that's the thing, is they're trying to make it so hard to do anything. The average gun owner is just going to be like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And I hope that people stand up and say, well, screw it. No, I'm going to do it. And I hope people do it, and they violate the law and they resist. I hope they do. the fact that this dude is getting hosed and he's getting raked over the coals for a unconstitutional law such as the NFA is crazy, but it's also that they're just like they're tacking on the fact that they reclassified the definition of their trigger of a machine gun to include the rare breed trigger, the force reset trigger. Now, I just really quick, if anybody who doesn't know who's listening, if you don't know what the force reset trigger is, it's basically a trigger that when you pull the trigger, it fires, and then and the way they built it was when the bolt carrier group comes back and it forces the hammer down, it basically has a mechanism inside that it forces your finger forward, so that it forces your finger forward. So you technically have completed one cycle. Basically, you pull the trigger and you've released the trigger, and it forces your finger forward. And then when it locks another round, when it pulls up another round and it locks that in, you already have backwards pressure, and so it forces your finger. So basically, you muscle like you're pulling the trigger anyway. It pulls the trigger again, and the cycle continues. Now you can shoot one time. All you got to do is you just got to kind of press the trigger differently. Uh, but no, it's ridiculous that this is classified as a full auto. By their definition, every trigger, every pull of the trigger is semi-auto. This is exactly matches up to their definition. It just makes it so that it's like a cheat code. It's a Konami code basically for triggers, and it makes it just easier. Has anybody committed a crime with the force reset trigger? No. Has anybody committed a crime with the bump stock and stuff like that? We can argue till the freaking cows come home on what you believe happened in Vegas, but I don't think that was a bump stock. That's just me. Call me a conspiracy nut. I'll go get the foil out of the drawer right now. But it was not a bump stock. I have fired bump stocks. I've seen videos of fired bump stocks. Like, that is not a bump stock. That was just a ploy for a setup to ban unconstitutionally an item on a firearm. But it's crazy. Like, it's nuts. I'm kind of curious to follow this to see what this happens with this guy. Unfortunately, with his other NFA, the unconstitutional NFA, unfortunately, it's turned him into a felon, and because he didn't register certain parts. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think honestly, his best case scenario, like if I were in his camp, this would be, by the way, like a perfect opportunity for like Firearms Policy Coalition to jump in with their legal team and ride this train all the way to the Supreme Court, challenge the NFA. Like this, because think about what the man, unless the man has committed crimes or theft, or unless he's done something connected to these firearms that would otherwise kind of taint the whole case, he's literally guilty of nothing but unregistered machine guns and unlawful possession. And this is like, bearing in mind that we just had the Bruin decision come out recently out of SCOTUS, and SCOTUS is now telling every court in the United States, if you want to hear a case that's a challenge to a firearms-related case, you go back to 1778 and point to something in history at that time that justifies the law that's being challenged. And they can't do it, because in 1778, I could have cannons on my private warship. I could have a puckle gun in my front yard on a pivot as a home defense weapon. I could have cannons loaded with grape shot in my living room, and nobody told me anything about it. So I guess my point of view is it's like, hey, Firearms Policy Coalition, here's a case for you. Ride that all the way to Supreme Court. Force them to strike down the NFA, because the Supreme Court has made incredibly clear that all gun restrictions are subject to review according to a new standard that is so restrictive to the anti-gunners. I don't see how anything can survive. We just have got to get the cases onto the dockets. And to me, I mean, this is like this is a soft-handed this is a soft underthrown softball to FPC or to another group. Why should this man have to friggin' fund his own defense by himself when the outcome could benefit us all? Now, that said, if the guy, like, I don't know, if he has like 6 nuns' heads in a duffel bag or something really crazy, then they'll let him swing. But no, don't let him swing for the firearms charges. Let him swing because he did bad stuff. But like that's kind of my frustration is if if we want if the ATF wants to investigate someone that committed a violent crime with a firearm, cool beans. I'm okay with that. But if all you want to do is investigate a person and persecute them for simple possession and they haven't done anything violent, I'm sorry, but like my BS flag flies up real fast.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this, and it's going to be interesting to see how this proceeds through the courts, and then also just how it proceeds through the SCOTUS, if it gets that far. But I mean, you look at Bruin, you look at all these court cases, and so I'm really curious to see just what happens against Bruin. And this is not just this case; it's actually all the cases that are coming forward, because there's more and more states every day that are there. I don't want to say more and more states. It's mostly New York, California, Massachusetts, stuff like that are violating Bruin, and they're pushing forward with assault weapons ban, magazine ban, all this other crap. And it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with these versus Bruin. And I really hope that SCOTUS kind of slap some of these states down. I'm hoping that they get sued in Bolivian. The problem is they have unlimited freaking money because of the taxpayers. They are using your money. If you live in that state, they're using your money, your tax dollars, to sue or basically to go to court and fight for their agenda, for the anti-gun agenda. Like, that's complete BS.
yeah. That's kind of been my summation of the situation before is, what the government does when they screw you out of your rights and you sue the government is that the government uses your money to hire lawyers to continue screwing you while you use what is left of your money that they haven't taxed out of oblivion to hire a lawyer to try to get your rights back. And if you win, there is zero consequences for everybody whose name is on those bills. If I could have one single thing done in a constitutional convention, I would make it to where if you sign your name on a bill that becomes a law and that law is later found to be unconstitutional, you are barred from public office for the rest of your life. Is that heavy handed? Hell yeah, it is. But it's also going to make some of these people think twice because it's going to make them realize the gravy train is going to stop at this station and kick me off if I sign my name on here and I'm not 100% convinced it'll stick. It'll give politicians some pause. Now, I'd love to see them in prison for the rest of their lives if they sign unconstitutional laws, but, I am an extremist, but even that's like a tiny, tiny little bit too spicy for me.
I mean, I'm
Andrew,
hard feather, but
guess what time it is?
I was gonna say my birthday, but
MOF drill. Ladies and gentlemen, how fast can you get to your nearest fire extinguisher? Where is your nearest fire extinguisher? Let's start there.
I can.
Does Andrew have a fire extinguisher yet?
Yeah, it's actually under the sink
In the kitchen?
in the kitchen. It's like 15 feet away from me.
Okay, is it rated for grease fires? Because those tend to happen in kitchens a lot.
It's rated for kitchen. It's one for kitchens.
Okay. I've got one in the exact same spot, also rated for grease fires. Have you checked the little gauge on it recently to make sure that the pressure is still where it's supposed to be?
Yep, it was. I actually, that's one of the first things I checked in when I was moving stuff in, putting the soap and some stuff under the sink. I was like, oh, hey, there's a fire extinguisher under here. And so I looked at it, and it was all good to go. But my paranoid butt, I plan on buying. I plan on buying more because I have a good friend of mine. His wife was cooking chicken in a cast iron, if I remember right, and basically she caught their whole kitchen on fire. And he used 2 extinguishers, I think it was, and basically reignited, flared up, and it was awesome. It sucked. So yeah, I plan on getting more because 2 is one is none. So I wouldn't mind having at least 2 in the kitchen and 1 in a closet, maybe one downstairs in the basement, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've got a conventional fire extinguisher in the kitchen, and I've been rolling around with an Element E50 in my truck for a while. I keep it in a quick fist, quick release mount, secured to the molly rack that's
Hmm.
kind of hugs the roof of my truck. So it's literally like right here when I'm sitting in my truck where I can grab it from the driver's seat.
And those are
But
nice. Reports about those.
I'm not normally an early adopter of like unknown esoteric stuff. It's just not my style. But like I've seen enough demonstrations of them to feel like there's got to be something to it. And the little tiny 2 pound fire extinguishers most people put in their cars, that thing is going to be like trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun. So I kind of figure an Element E50. What I need to do is buy another one and then shoot some quick video of it. Maybe when we get more into the fall, my family starts doing campfires, extinguish a campfire with that thing, just to see how does it work. You know, make a little bit of content for the channel here and be something for the listeners and the viewers to kind of see is this thing legit or not. I will say that I've seen it. I've seen it used several times. It seems legit.
Yeah, the only thing though is just make sure you if you go camping and you decide to use it on your campfire, just make sure you're done with the campfire.
Well,
You'll
that's a
be done with the campfire after you use it, and you won't be able to get it restarted. It'll take a second.
yeah. Well, that's the cool thing about the element is that there's no residue or anything after you use it, supposedly. So like it's not like it works more similarly to like halon than anything, except halon destroys oxygen and this doesn't, so it's not toxic. But the idea is that it chemically retards the fire without residue. So anybody that's ever cooked off a fire extinguisher in an enclosed space like a house or a car, it's a mess.
So
In the racing community, guys that have fire suppression on their vehicles, that is a like when you pull that pin, you are doing so to save your own life. You are not doing so to save the car because the car
so
is going to be freaking ruined afterwards.
so funny story, real quick, before we go on to the next subject. The company I work for, we have fleet vehicles, and they're all medically staffed. We have fire extinguishers in all of them. We have Hazor, we have burn blankets, like we have all kinds of crap in them, for medical and fire related. One of the guys before he retired, I'm working overtime, and all of a sudden he comes pulling forward, and he's got all the windows down, and there's smoke just rolling out of all four windows. And he gets out, and he is covered from head to waist, basically, like what you could see, except for basically what was sitting down, covered in the yellow, in the fire extinguisher residue. What happened was the pin fell out, and it fell just right to where it hit
Oh
and
no.
released, and it dumped the entire extinguisher while he had the windows down, and dumped it all inside of a closed vehicle. Oh man, we laughed so hard. I mean, and the thing is though, is like the ABC extinguishers, like it's the material. It's non harmful. It's non toxic. Like you can ingest it and it's fine. But so like we weren't worried about that. But oh man, like we laughed so freaking hard. I about peed myself. It was a good day. It was funny.
Yeah. So like I said, fire extinguishers. I did promise when we started doing these MOF drills on the show that why do you need a fire extinguisher? Just call the fire department. Cool story, guy. No. You know why? Because there's not a fire truck sitting on that curb waiting for me just in case. So before they show up, I got to deal with the problems myself.
Right.
But like I promised when we started these MOF drills that yes, there'd be some traditional firearms drills like how fast can you do a slide lock reload, and like how fast can you do certain shooting drills. And I also promised that it was going to be a lot of stuff that wasn't that, because like there's a lot to preparedness. It's not guns. Guns is just the fun part of preparedness. But it really comes down to like if you have a grease fire in your kitchen, 9mm is not going to do you a lot of good. You need a fire extinguisher. It's like the other day when we did when we did the drill about does your family know the emergency plan? If your family doesn't know the emergency plan in a time of emergency, it's a really bad time to try to fill them in. So that's why to me it's always been about like these MOF drills. It's not just fire. It's not the traditional stuff you're thinking of. It's a chance for me to kind of reach out to the audience, tap you on the shoulder, and say, "Hey, have you thought about this recently?" And I kind of guessed. I gotta give you more credit, but I kind of figured you being a new homeowner, that might have been something you missed. I thought I was going to stump the Andrew, and I missed my guess, but I
In
was trying.
your face. Uh, so you want to get on the next one because this one's an interesting topic.
And I just finished off my first beer, so now I'm
Do you want to go get another one?
fully primed for this. Fed spending going to the moon with climate change and 87,000 IRS agents.
If this bill passes,
It will.
yeah, it probably will. But if this bill passes, the IRS will have more funding than multiple small nations combined. Like
The IRS is going to have more personnel than Border Patrol.
yeah, there's funding in this bill for 87,000 new IRS agents, 5 million rounds of ammo, and like 4,500 rifles. Tell me, why do tax agents need rifles, and why do they need it? And in their did I send it to you? Yeah, I think I did send it to you. But basically, they're that's sorry, nice. No, let me see. So the job description for this, if you haven't seen, for the IRS on their website, and it's kind of funny that they posted it and then they deleted it, I guess, but not before some people screen grabbed it. So here's a couple major duties for the IRS for this position for what they're hiring for.
Please
One,
elucidate us.
huh?
Please elucidate us.
Yeah. One, adhere to the highest standards of conduct, especially in maintaining honest and integrity. I would
Exactly
hope
what you
so.
think of.
I
Exactly
would
what you
hope
think
so.
of when you think about government employees.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, work a minimum of 50 hours per week. That's not bad, which may include irregular hours, be on call 24/7, including holidays and weekends. I could understand that being IRS and, in that kind of in that field of in the government and stuff. Maintaining a level of fitness necessary to effectively respond to life-threatening situations on the job. You're a tax person. Like, what life-threatening situations are you going after? I mean, like,
Paper cuts.
yeah, paper cuts, the printer jams. Maybe there's a fire. Maybe the printer catches fire. The water is out at the local watering hole that
It's
everybody
a
at.
it's a long walk to the break room to warm up your lunch at the microwave.
Exactly. Somebody forgot their stapler. I don't know. Their TPS reports weren't in on time. I don't know. But carry a firearm. Okay, this one's carry a firearm and be willing to use deadly force if necessary. Like, that's in the job description. Like, that is just like, you're a tax agent and they're saying, like, what's going to happen? Are you afraid like some paper trolls are going to come out and like fight you, or like what's going on? Like, and then be willing and able to participate in arrest, execution of search warrants, and other dangerous and that doesn't finish what they're saying, but basically dangerous job duties. That just those last two just blow my mind. Like, what in the world is the government ramping up to do?
It
What are they?
almost it almost makes it sound like they're not really going to be used to investigate tax fraud.
Yeah, and 87,000 at that. Like, if you look at this, bill, the majority of taxes, and they're raising taxes. Guess who they're raising taxes on? The middle class.
Oh no. Uncle Joe said if you make less than 400K, you're fine.
He also said he
He's
doesn't
going to
sniff
tax the
kids.
rich.
Yeah, he also said he didn't sniff kids, and we have him on video doing that.
He also said there wouldn't be a vaccine mandate and
is-
that he knew nothing about his son's business dealings in China, even though 10% for the big guy. And he also tries to shake hands with invisible people, and he
I
speaks
do
in
that.
tongues every now and then. I don't know what language he speaks. We're calling him Bidenism.
The one that I'm really mad at is he has not forgiven my student loans yet. God, that makes me so mad. Not really, just kidding. Sarcasm. Anyway, no, 87,000 new agents. Like that is just, and that is just part of this bill, like a sliver of this bill. Not to mention the enormous amount of money that they're putting in for quote unquote climate change.
Green energy.
Yeah, and green energy and stuff like that. Like they're forcing it down our throats. And honestly, they're trying to push whatever they can because they're so afraid of what's going to happen in November. They're trying to push whatever they can.
What are they afraid of is going to happen in November?
I mean, the same.
They're afraid the GOP is going to
Well,
get into office and sit
not
around for the next 4
2 years.
years and do nothing but
Yeah.
friggin' complain and campaign.
Yeah.
What are they afraid of?
The only
They
the best.
got they are in the process right now of trying to shove an assault weapons ban down everybody's freaking throat because a handful of those turncoat spineless worms jumped ship to their side. What are they scared of? They're scared that that Nancy Pelosi might become the House Minority Leader for a change? Come on. Until they get somebody like me or you or a real libertarian in that like gets into the seat of power, what do they have to be scared of? That they're going to have to like stab the brakes on their agenda and go and drop it down to like 70 miles an hour instead of full speed ahead, pedal down? Seriously.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, yeah, Proud Text in there said it the best.
Very ironic.
Yeah, the country that fought a war over taxation is hiring 87,000 tax collectors. And it's ironic. And honestly, the irony is laughable because the fact that our ancestors fought a war over taxation, among other things, I guess. But we are taxed in literally every freaking thing all day long, every day. We are taxed. Like it is crazy how if you actually sit down and think about it, and for somebody who doesn't think there's that much, sit down, go through your grocery bill, go through your gas, go through and figure out what your taxes are and how much stuff you are taxed on. It's mind-boggling how much you are taxed on.
You know, Ryan from the Next Generation show over on PBN, he brought this up to me recently, and I had no idea before he pointed out. I was actually kind of shocked, but apparently, our beloved federal government passed some changes to the tax code a couple of years ago that actually made barter taxable. So, like Andrew, if you and I have stuff and there's no exchange of money, there's no income, there's no sale, we just take the stuff and we exchange the stuff. Technically, by the law, there's now a tax obligation created for both of us.
I gave you 4 tacos for a pizza, and I have to give up 2 tacos to the government, and you have to give up half a pizza. Dude, that's fighting words right there. I'm not giving them for shit.
I mean, in broad strokes, that's pretty much it because, like this is one of the ways that like a lot of people have been trying to get out from underneath the yoke of the government is by saying, okay, well, I'm not, instead of buying more stuff, I'm going to make stuff and I'm going to barter it, and we're going to have like a little micro community or a commune where we're trading stuff back and forth. And the IRS is having none of that. You need to pay your fair share. They don't care. And I'm sorry to say, but it doesn't take 87,000 IRS agents to fix the rich not paying their fair share. You know what it takes? I could do this in an afternoon. I could take the entire tax code and shorten it to one paragraph, fix everything, but no one would go for it. Flat tax. We can argue endlessly about what the correct percentage is, but flat tax across the board. You work, X for every dollar you make, X number of pennies goes to the Fed. Not a progressive tax system. Not the more money you make, the more you pay. If it's 10%, you pay 10%. The guy making $20,000 a year living in poverty pays 10%. The guy making $200,000 a year pays 10%. The guy making $2 million a year pays 10%. Everybody pays 10% if that's what we're going to go with. And then there are zero exemptions to it. No homestead exemption, no write-offs, nothing. Now, when a very rich person tries to shove all their money into a shell corporation off overseas or whatever, you tell them, no. Whatever you receive into your account as income, you owe us 10%. Discussion over. And here's the thing of it. Right now, rich people, and I don't begrudge them for their wealth, but very wealthy people hire armies of accountants to mull through the tax code and find ways to pay less taxes. Do you know why they're able to do that? Because the same people in DC right now that are screaming and yelling about the rich not paying their fair share invented a tax code so convoluted that you can stab holes through it all day long with an army of accountants and make it to where you pay no taxes. You know who can't take advantage of those kinds of shenanigans? The middle class. Because I can't employ an army of accountants to figure out how to make my tax obligation zero. I take steps to minimize my tax obligation, but I don't have the ability to make it all disappear. So my argument every time somebody brings this up, the rich not paying their fair shares, I'm like, why not do a flat tax, no exemptions? No progressive will go for that because it fundamentally defeats the idea that they want the rich to fund their agenda. This has nothing to do with paying fair share. This has nothing to do with paying fair share. If it was pay fair share, everybody pay the same percentage, and that'd be the end of it. It's, I want to use the tax code to penalize someone who has stuff I want. And then I want that and then I want the welfare state to take that tax money and benefit me with it. It is literally the government as Robin Hood without the benevolent story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Although in this case, Robin Hood shaves off 80% of the money to himself and gives you what's left. Mm-hmm. So he's robbing the rich and enriching himself and giving you the pennies that are left over.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, going back to like the whole barter and stuff like that, and then them taxing the barter. I mean, it just comes down to they want their fair share. I mean, look at the Executive Order 6102, which was passed by Roosevelt, and that's the executive order that made owning gold illegal. And they said it was to stop hoarding of gold. They said that's what they said it was for. But in reality, all it was is people were bartering goods and services with gold, and the government couldn't. The Federal Reserve couldn't get their cut because hey, if people are doing this under the table, if they're trading and we're not getting our gold, we're not getting our fair share. That's not doing anything for the government. That's not giving the money to the government. So they decided to make it illegal. Like that's, I mean, again, tinfoil hat. Call me crazy, whatever. But that's the writing out. That's the writing behind the whole smoke screen that I'm seeing, and it's pretty crazy. And
somebody brought up a good point before I go to the next topic, and it's one of those like almost borderline tinfoil hat, but when you think about it, it makes a certain amount of sense. But somebody raised the issue. They're like, one of the big pushes of the progressive agenda has been women empowerment, feminism, so on and so forth. And they point out, they're like, a lot of things happen when third wave feminism really got shifted into high gear and a lot of women entered the workforce. But one of the things that happened, I hadn't thought of this angle until it was pointed out to me. They're like, one of the things that happened was very suddenly the government had a lot more people to tax. Because prior to that, there was no way to tax a young woman who decided to be a stay-at-home mother. There was no way to tax her productivity. There was no way to tax it. You had a single earner household. Husband was the breadwinner. He bring home the bread. She took care of the children. She took care of the home. She cooked the meals. She did all that. And in a lot of cases, she even educated the kids herself. And there was no way to tax all that untapped productivity. So what do? We tell women that in order to be equal and in order to empower them, they have to go into the workforce and deal with the stress and the commute and all the crap men have been dealing with for generations before them. And what did the government reap? A whole lot of new wage slaves. Now, I don't know that I totally sign on to that idea, but when it was pointed out to me, it was one of those moments where somebody tells you like one of the craziest flat earth conspiracy theories you've ever heard, but then you think about it, you're like, actually, that makes a little bit of sense. I don't know if it makes enough sense for me to latch onto it, but it's just compelling enough that I can't quite let go of it. Not
Yeah.
that I think the government would ever use social engineering for their own ends. They don't do that kind of thing.
I mean, but now they're going after your. Before we move on here, they're going after Venmo and stuff like that, because you have Venmo where if you pay a certain way, or PayPal if you pay a certain way, you don't pay you don't have to pay the extra tax and all that stuff on it. So friends and family stuff like that, and they want to go after it. It's just when will people say enough? When? I'm hoping soon. It's getting ridiculous. It's crazy that people are still going along with this. People need to stand up and say enough is enough. If everybody sat there, if everybody could band together and say we're not paying taxes for a month or for that in the next year, whatever it is, if they say well, we're done paying taxes, we're protesting against it. What do you think the government will be? SOL. They're going to start sending people out, and they're going to start. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to send the IRS agents with their guns and ammo, and they're going to start forcibly taking your funds.
Yeah. I mean, what do I think would happen? First of all, I think that I don't think there's many corporations in the United States that would willfully allow that to happen. Although, if you would like to engage in your own little I don't want to pay taxes protest, pro tip, go to your HR office and ask them to fill out a new W-4 form. And then make your withholding single 99 dependents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, understand that is not committing tax fraud because that form is not used to calculate your tax obligation per the IRS. What it is there for is to help the company figure out roughly what your tax obligation would be by the end of the year, knowing what your wages are because they're paying them to you. And then they say, okay, Mr. Bobo is going to make $40,000 this year. He has no dependents and he is single. So they're going to feed all that into the calculation. The calculation is going to say Mr. Bobo owes $2,000 to the state, $4,000 to the federal government. They're going to take those amounts. They're going to break it up across however many pay periods you get, either 26 or 24, depending on whether you get paid every 2 weeks or bi-monthly, whatever. Semi-monthly, bi-monthly, yeah. And then they're going to withhold that amount from each one of your checks and kick it up to the state and the Fed every paycheck. That's how your payroll works. And I know because that's kind of something I did for about 7 years, was work in a payroll office. So I'm very familiar with how that all works. So when you go in and fill out that form, single 99, you are basically telling your employer, I don't want to be taxed at all. And they will not withhold taxes from your check. Now, point of order, the IRS gets a little bit aggravated when they don't get the money they're expecting from people within a timely fashion. So, if I recall correctly, if the difference between your tax obligation and what you paid in, like I think it's every quarter, if it gets too far out of whack, they start imposing penalties on you. So it's recommended that you figure out what your tax obligation is and send the IRS a check for your anticipated amount every quarter, just so you don't have penalties at the end of the year. But I've known people who they made substantial money and they would actually figure out their taxes, put it into a savings account, and then they would send these quarterly interest checks out of those savings accounts. So the government's still getting the same tax dollars. They're not going to come and kick your door in, but you're making interest on your own tax money now. Pro tip. However, I do say that if you're going to pull that little shenanigan, and I've seen it done, it can be done very successfully. If you can find ways to make your money work for you with compound interest or some other method before you have to send in those checks, then it's worth doing. But it has to be enough money to justify that aggravation and the risk of a penalty if you miscalculate something.
Right.
Or if you just want to say screw the IRS and the Fed, then tell them come and get me.
Right. So for the next topic here, Nicholas, it's a great segue because he says, yeah. So Nicholas says, sees my not worthless funds thanks to inflation. Sorry, sir, there is no inflation, according to the White House in July. July. I think it was July or June. No inflation, zero, zero inflation. And I don't know if and I mean they're saying basically there was no rise in inflation. I think is basically what they're trying to say. But zero inflation. Yeah, eat
I
my
think
butt.
that's some Common Core math.
Yeah, right.
No, but seriously, like you're dead on. The White House is arguing that, okay, for those of you who stuck around through the last time we spoke, where we talked about how they were trying to pull some Biden economics and convince us that that a recession is not really 2 periods of negative GDP, even though it's been that forever. They're now trying to convince us, oh no, it's more complicated than that because if we're in a recession, we get our butts handed to us in November, so we have to change the definition. Well, that's what they're doing here. So what the Biden regime and the White House are arguing is that because the inflation rate was 8.5% in June and it's 8.5% in July, that the inflation rate is zero because it didn't go up more. However, the inflation rate is not it can be calculated in a variety of different ways. It is most commonly calculated year to year. So when you've been hearing me and other people say the inflation is this, that, and the other for like the last 12 months, we've been referencing that month 12 months ago and saying compared to last year this time, the inflation has taken this much more of a bite out of what your money is worth. And the inflation rate is 8.5%. It's come down slightly, but it's still 8.5 freaking percent, which means
it's zero.
No. First of all, I am not going to be lectured by Marxists and stuttering potatoes about what inflation is. I spent way too much of my time and money and brain cells in college, in economics classes, to be lectured by these freaking idiots about what inflation is or about what a recession is. I am entirely too freaking intelligent to be lectured by these freaking idiots about things that I know and I can define. So no, inflation is not 0%, no matter how much this freaking idiot and his freaking mouthpieces desperately want it to be so they don't get their butts handed to them in November for the stuff they have actually done and their policies. They don't get to redefine things because it's inconvenient for them. They caused this. You print a couple $1 trillion, you dump it into the freaking economy, you shut the whole country down. They caused this. They don't get to friggin' skate on it now. And that's only with one beer, ladies and gentlemen. One of these days I'm going to do this show with another one sitting in a cooler on standby and really lose my freaking mind. But it pisses me off. I can't stand to have somebody pee in my face and tell me it's raining like I'm stupid. And that is what is going on in politics today. The government is actually telling us repeatedly that don't trust your eyes and ears. I know you're having trouble feeding your family and putting gas in your tank, and you're questioning how your 401k is going to ever allow you to retire. You're freaking racking up credit card debt trying to keep afloat. Your home values are about to collapse. I know you're in pain, but just trust me, it's not as bad as you think it is. Because hot dogs are 16 cents cheaper this year, even though gas is $2 more expensive. I'm a little over these people. I'm a little tired of their crap.
Well,
I kind of want them all to just shut up, take the L that I hope to God they get. Because I'm going to tell you right here now, if these people stay in power for another 2 years, I am going to freaking scream. And at that moment, Phil is going to take off his libertarian cape and put on the ANCAP one and just start saying burn it all down. Because at that point, I have no faith left in humanity or my fellow American to self-correct this freaking crap show. See, Thank you, Ben. All Andrew had to do was, just repeat something I heard on the news from the White House press corps, and I just lost it. Sorry, guys.
Well, okay. Well, let's move. I got nothing else on that subject. You hit the nail on the head. They are literally peeing in our face and saying it's rain. Or the golden shower, which whatever, you take it as you will. But it's not gold. Anyway, no, the plus side is I'm hoping I mean, you and I see the Republican side as an issue rather than how do I want to put this? The Republican Party is more of an issue than it is salvation, maybe. I don't know if that's right, the right verbiage. At one point we used to be able to look at the Republican Party and say, I can't wait till we can vote because it's the right people. We can get them in. They're going to correct some stuff. But nowadays, it's the best thing that I can look forward to is if the Republicans take over the House or the Senate or both. I'm hoping it'd be nice for both. But I'm hoping for one because that means stalled Congress. Nothing will get passed. Unless you get some turncoat rhino assholes that deserve to be tarred and feathered. But I'm hoping that it comes down to at least half, so then nothing gets passed. I'd rather nothing get passed than bull crap freaking laws get passed. And that goes for when the Democrats hold both sides or all three chambers, and that goes for when the Republicans hold all three chambers. There needs to be checks and balances, and the whole checks and balances system has gotten completely out of control to the point of non-existence, to where you can't do the checks and balances, and the fact that the judicial system, it sucks. You have the Supreme Court that is going after some of these rulings and saying, hey, this is unconstitutional. And you have states going, nah, we don't need to listen to you. It's what? Yeah, you do. You do. It's the Supreme Court. When they say this is unconstitutional, especially say, let's go back to Bruin. Hey, this gun law is unconstitutional, and the state's like, yeah, no, it's not. Now, there should be separation between our state liberties and our federal, to where we do need to bring back power to the states. And that's where, whether or not you agree with it or not, but the abortion ruling that SCOTUS did, that brought power back down to the states, the individual states. That's how it should be. And that's the thing. The same thing goes with firearms. Is I just wish that SCOTUS would just drop it and just basically drop a bomb and say, basically, hey, go by your state's constitution, go by your state, drop it back down to the states, and just take the federal government out of it altogether. That's what needs to happen with pretty much everything. Is the federal government needs to be taken out of it altogether. They do a crappy ass job when they're included, and they screwed everything up. That's just and so. But seeing the GOP, seeing the takeover, and the minds that are melting because of this is actually kind of laughable. Arizona is making waves right now with the primaries and stuff like that. Carrie Lake, I think, is her name. She took every single county in Arizona,
including Maricopa.
Yeah,
that was the shocker to me, because Maricopa is the one big blue county with a big metro area in Arizona. It's the same story in most states, honestly. You have tons and tons and tons of Republican or conservative counties scattered throughout a state, mostly in less populated areas, and then you get a couple of major metro areas with tons of freaking population that swing the whole state back to the middle or back to the other side. And that is the way it is with Arizona. So count me among the shocked when she carried Maricopa County as well. I mean, I feel like what happened in Arizona and what we're seeing in a couple, like we saw this with Glenn Youngkin and Winsome Sears, his lieutenant governor. Like we're seeing more and more and more traditionally Democrat strongholds flipping to Republicans, but it's not flipping to Rhino. They're not flipping to Rhino Republicans. They're not flipping to neocons. They're flipping to young conservatives,
Mhm.
like the little county on the Texas southern border that flipped Republican for the first time in like over 100 years. That's not a GOP hack that they installed. That was a person who ran on kitchen table issues and got elected because she told her now constituents, these are the things that matter to me, and I think they matter to y'all. And the exit poll made it extremely clear the state of the economy was the single biggest driver. People are tired of Republicans that do nothing, and they are tired of Democrats whose allegiance is to the party and to the agenda and not to the people that are sending them to power. And people want people that are going to do what they ask them to do. So a lot of the way the news has framed this has been like this is the MAGA takeover, which is why I termed it that way. But the way I see it is, it's like right now, and for several years, there's been this big identity struggle within the GOP. You have the old guard GOP, Mitch McConnell. I can't stand the friggin' turtle looking SOB and many of his ilk, Marco Rubio, a lot of people I don't even want to name. And then on the other side of things, you have the young upstarts coming into the party. Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not exactly young people, but they're coming in with new energy and new ideas. And they're coming in with the idea that we are supposed to be the conservative party. We need to start being conservatives. We need to stop compromising with the other side and push our own agenda. And like that agenda or not, I see that as a positive because I believe that every country has got to have a little bit of balance. Like you really don't want a person like me at the seat of power with no checks and balances. You really don't. If Andrew goads me into it, I actually wrote up he and I were BSing the other day, and I just started spouting off like I do sometimes. I said, well, if I ever ran for president, this would be my platform. And he said he'd vote for me, but he's insane. So I wouldn't take that as a vote of confidence. But like, you don't want a person like me. I'm an extremist. I'm a libertarian. I'm a borderline ANCAP sometimes on some issues. Like, and I admit that I am very extreme. I default very heavily towards liberty and towards anti-authoritarianism and towards small government. Like, that's me. You don't want a person like me in charge because I think I'd swing the pendulum way over that direction. But there's got to be some kind of a counterbalance to the extreme progressive agenda that we're seeing in real time in front of us with the Biden administration. And it doesn't exist because the GOP of friggin' George Bush and George W. Bush, the GOP of the GOP of Mitch McConnell, the GOP of Mitt Romney, for Christ's sakes, that GOP is doing nothing. They're not conservatives, they're liberal light. They're they're infringe slowly, not stop infringing and wind back the infringements. So I am emotionally at peace if the Republican Party is taken over from the inside and converted into this new band of fire breathers who want to swing the needle and swing it hard. I think it presents a good counterbalance to the other side. And I think it gives the voters a true decision to make about the direction of our country via our elected representatives. But the GOP of old, the GOP of our fathers, is a failure, in my humble opinion. By the way, none of them are paying me to be a political commentator or give my opinion. They don't want to hear it.
No, I agree. I mean, that's the thing is, I don't know. Like I just posted in our chat here. I believe I believe both parties are out to hose the little guy. They're basically out to screw us all. They're just doing it different ways. The Republican Party is far from what it used to be, and it's nice seeing younger politicians come in with a new uh, who want to change, who want to actually make some change. And so it's nice seeing that. But the thing is like we still have these career politicians, and that's the thing is our founding fathers, they never intended this to be a job to last your lifetime, and that's why we need term limits. I've always been for term limits, and if we want new blood, if we want to see new people, fresh ideas, and things coming forward, term limits is the way to go. I would love to see that in my lifetime, because to me, it's gonna these people once they term out, like they're constantly going on uh, reelection. They're always on a reelection campaign, and then some of them that they just don't run opposed because the people who want to oppose them, they can't raise nearly half the money that they can that they have in pocket, and the donors and stuff like that. To me that's just wrong, and so that's why we need term limits to get people like Pelosi. I mean, shoot, I can't even think of the McConnell. You know, like to get people off of out on both sides of the aisle to get them out, and new fresh blood in, and new fresh ideas in. We need that. And that's the only way, like I feel like that's the only way that our country is going to survive. It's not going to survive much longer the way it's going. I firmly believe that. And
Well,
we need something to change.
it's also worth pointing out that, like, there is a minimum age for the House and the Senate and for many if not all public offices. But our founding fathers, when they originally envisioned this grand experiment, laid all this out. The idea was you were going to temporarily do this as a public service. You'd be paid basically just enough to justify your travel, and you would only really do it for a period of time, because after you did it for a little while, you were supposed to go leave public service, go back to whatever you were doing before, and be a productive member of society. You know, hell of a concept. But then somewhere along the way, they got converted into extraordinarily high paid, among some of the highest paid federal employees there are, for basically what is a part-time job that they don't even do most of the time. They hire staffers to read these freaking bills if they don't just rubber stamp them. So please don't try to sell me the sob story that House and Senate members work that hard. The staffers get paid like dirt and they do most of the money. All these other idiots do is go to banquets and campaign and get elected and pay their staff. But the thing I find kind of annoying is, and somebody again, this is one of those things that somebody pointed out to me, and I started thinking about it. Andrew, you know that, like, what do you feel like? Because I don't have a statistic in front of me. What do you feel like the average retirement age is in this country?
Uh,
65, 67, 68, somewhere in there.
yeah, I would say 68.
Okay, 68 years old. So there's two reasons for that. First of all, usually by the time a person's reached about that age, they have enough funds stacked away someplace that they can pay their living expenses for the remainder of their life. But the other reason is because people, once they reach a certain age, mental decline starts to kick in, and they are basically considered like unemployable because their mind's not as sharp as it once was. They can't swim upstream with everybody else. And it's not a dig at anybody who's still like 80 years old and, doing Einstein stuff. Cool for you. But the averages speak loudly that as people age, their ability to deal with stress and do complex tasks diminishes. That's just the way our bodies are designed. People, we all have a shelf life. We're milk, not wine. We don't get better with age. And yet, if you look at the age of people like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, in the private sector, they would be considered unemployable because of their age and their lack of job experience. Yet these are the freaking psychos that we elect to run our country. And if a young person, say my age, 39 years old, decent health, great ideas, well educated, well read, lots of history and philosophy under my belt, if I ran for office, people would look at me and say, well, he's too young. He must not know what he's talking about. But you're going to elect those people who can't get a job outside of being elected. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to like take a total dig at the elderly at all. I just find that a little bit ish. But that's just me.
That's
I'm going to
just
sort through the comments. I'm sure everybody's fighting with each other because a couple of our patrons joined the fray. Which, by the way, for everybody, I didn't realize it until about 15 minutes into the show. I meant to leave this show unlisted, so only the patrons and the PBN hosts would be able to find it. But apparently, in the process of setting it up, I did something and accidentally let this out public. So I don't think there's really anybody here other than a couple of people listening. But this was actually meant to be kind of a test run just
one
for a small audience. And Phil screwed it all up, and now the whole world can see it.
one job, and I'm sitting here, no pants on. On a happy note, though, I did get the wood from up north, and I got the wood here at home for my desk. So I'm going to be ordering parts, or I'm going to be ordering some tools online, and I will be working on. I'm hoping to have my desk done soon, which then will make my office even closer. I want to start putting stuff on my office on the back. The shelving unit there. I have a flamethrower that's going to go on there, and an AK, and some books. But yeah, so that's an update on that. Anybody who cares. No, I have a really fun. I saw so this one right here. We got to get into this because I saw a thing going through the Instagram. I saw a funny quote because you know how they said like 2 weeks to slow the spread with COVID and everything.
This is a family-friendly show. Proceed carefully.
It is. I'm giving you a warning now. Yell at your kids, say earmuffs, or yell at your kids and say earmuffs and let them and make sure they're covered up. But shoot, now I'm drawing a blank. But it's slow the spread. I think it said slow the spread, close the cheeks for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. See, the thing about monkeypox that drives me the craziest is like I'm not stupid. Okay, we've already established that I'm slightly more intelligent than the average turnip. Like I understand it can be transmitted by skin contact. I really question if it could be like incidental contact, like you just like bump up against somebody and next thing you know you got sores developing. But you know, okay, skin contact, but I do know a trend developing that the majority of people that are coming down with this seem to be engaging in certain, shall we say, alternative lifestyles and behaviors. And where I come from, that's called a sign. Like in statistics, which is like my Big Ben, that's what I do for a living. That's what we call significant data. Because when you chart a whole bunch of stuff and you make a pretty little graph and everything is all scattered and crazy, you know you found something when you get everything charted correctly and there's one data point that goes way, way, way up here and all the rest of it's flat. And when you look across the whole of who's catching monkeypox right now, there's one population that's like way, way, way up here and all the rest are kind of down here. And to me, that is a significant data point. But I find it a little telling that you know, our CDC and the government and the talking heads and most of the media won't really admit that. And I've even seen some people saying we need to go back to masking indoors because of monkeypox. Because I have never in my life seen... Can I call it an STD and not get us kicked off YouTube? I'm going to. I've never seen an STD transmitted... Hello?
I said YOLO. No, I said YOLO, not HOLO.
I've never seen an STD transmitted via airborne, airborne transmission. So all I'm saying is, if I am very happily married in a very monogamous relationship with a woman who would absolutely murder me if I stepped outside the bounds of marriage. So let's just assume for a moment that I have very little to fear from monkeypox. I will not be getting y'all's vaccine when y'all finally get around to, shoving it out nationwide. I don't feel the need to mask. And I really am just kind of over this whole lurching from one public health emergency to the next to continue to justify more tyrannical authoritarianism. Sorry. I kind of got over all that when y'all want to shut the whole country down for 2 weeks that turned into 2 years on the back of a 99.97% survival rate. Just saying.
Just saying. No, I agree. I mean, and that's the thing is the whole COVID stuff. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Expect yeah, the monkeypox thing. They're labeled it an endemic now, and the fact that they're pushing like I think New York and stuff, they're pushing for masks indoors and stuff like that. And that's the thing is like, well, I'm not walking around licking butt cheeks, so I mean, unless she has a really nice butt, but I will not be doing that. And even then, it's like the whole monkeypox thing. Like it's not an issue. If to me, this is like if it turns into anything really serious, like to me, it's going to be our generation's version of AIDS. That's what it's going to turn into. And so yeah, the whole monkeypox thing is just another thing. And I mean, they just announced a new virus in China that they just announced it was like 35 people and it's more deadly than COVID and all this other crap. Like
Okay.
they're constantly they're just going to be they're always going to be that, just like there's always going to be a new version of COVID. There's always going to be some new virus, which there always is. There always will be a new virus. Mother Nature is always evolving. Whether and by Mother Nature I mean if it's grown in a lab, COVID style. Take what you will, but Mother Nature is always evolving. There's so many viruses out there that we don't know about. I can guarantee. I'm not a scientist, so I don't but there's so much out there that we don't know about that's in nature. And that's the thing is like they're constantly, just because they want to try to keep the people down. They want to try to keep the people under the thumb. They're just trying to. They're just trying to make, hey, we need a new scare tactic. What can it be? Well, let's do monkeypox. Like that's what's it's just crazy. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially closer to election. Like I know it's August. I mean, we're less than 100 days away from our election, and uh, I can guarantee you something is going to happen to where they're going to be like, well, we need to start voting in not in person. We can't vote in person because it's unsafe. That's complete BS. Do away with freaking mail-in voting. It's the worst freaking way of voting. It's the easiest form of voting to cheat on.
Well, I
So
mean, either that or Dominion voting systems where
yeah,
the counting software is all, none of it's open source and it's all proprietary and nobody really knows what's happening inside those machines.
yeah.
Let's just assume for a moment that I will be walking down to the polls wearing a hazmat suit if absolutely necessary, but I'll be happily casting a vote come November.
Mhm.
And honestly, I can tell you right now that with very few exceptions, if you are currently in office today, I am not voting for any of you morons again. I have had enough of y'all. It is time to put adults back in charge, not Marxists and children who, oh, Eddie. Funny stories right before we roll this out. I was deployed to Iraq in 2004. If you remember right, there was an election going right there. You know what happened with all of our mail-in ballots? We never saw them. Getting mail all for every other thing, but we never got our ballots. Not a one of us. Never even saw them or heard of them. Would have loved to have gotten to vote in that election, by the way, considering what we had to tolerate for the next 8 years. But neither here nor there. Please, for the love of God, get involved in politics. The old saying that either you take an interest in politics or politics will take an interest in you has never been more true than it is today. We have choices in this country, people. We can either get our butts in gear, pull our pants out of them, and start doing the hard work of trying to make this clown show, get back on track. We can either do that now, or we can wait until it's too late to do this peacefully and in the voting booth. I personally would rather do the work now. So I'm telling y'all to get active, get informed, get loud, and get out in your communities. None of us are going to win this war by ourselves. We have to start pushing. And we have to stop supporting people who don't support us. Matter of Fact's podcast out. Say goodnight, Andrew.
Good night, Andrew.